Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Axial Knives Shift Gen 3. I reviewed the original OG Axial Knives Shift a long time ago, and there's been several changes from this version. You no longer have this slant right here, which I love that they did that because it just makes this handle so long compared to the blade. But I gotta say, this was a nice OTF. I've used it and abused it over the years, and it's still kicking. I have no misfires, and they've only improved it from here. So on this particular one, I have the Wharncliffe blade, and you can get these in 3 different blade steels. My particular blade steel is CPM MagnaCut steel, as you can see there. I've already tested Axial's MagnaCut on their Alpine fixed blade, and it did fantastic, so I'm sure this one will do just as good. These are USA made, and they're very competitive in their prices. The only other that I know of that is competing with them is Kershaw with the live wire. The live wire comes in at $240 in MagnaCut, and this one right here, the Shift, comes in at $229 in MagnaCut, or $229 if you want to get it in crew wear. And they also offer an S35VN that is coming in at $219. So I like how they're using different steels, you know, the latest and greatest. I love crew wear as well. I like S35VN as well. They're all good steels, and I think they're doing an excellent job at the price point they're coming for sure. I like the overall size on this one. It's coming in at 8.06 inches long with a 3.23 inch, like I said, Wharncliffe blade in that CPM MagnaCut. I forget what they rock well, their MagnaCut 2. I know they told me when I did the fixed blade, so I apologize if you want to go watch that video. I say whatever the HRC is. This particular version has a 2-tone blade. You have satin on the flats, and then your primary swedge and spine have a blasted stonewash finish. Usually it's not a finish I like to see on knives because that can cause a knife to corrode, but I have several knives with the blasted stonewash finish with MagnaCut, and I've not had any issues whatsoever because MagnaCut has really good corrosion resistance. I like that top swedge. It just gives it a nice little added aesthetic flair. You have their signature 3 milled lines that are on both sides, and I guess it could act as jimping, but it's a little too close for jimping. If they wanted some jimping, I'd want some like right here and some fine cut jimping. But you know, if I want to grab onto something, I grab onto this button. But most of the time, I'm going to be using it in a hammer grip anyway. That's just the way I tend to use, especially a Warney. You do have a sharpening choil. However, I sharpened this one up after I finished the testing. And as you can see, with my fixed angle system, I started to come up on that plunge. So that's something I wish they could address with the next iteration. And I'm sure it has something to do with the way these lock up with that little gate, or whatever they're calling, whatever you call that little spot. I don't know where it lands, but I would have loved to see it just from right here go straight up and over, or up and then loop back. That'll help you from flaring out. Now, I didn't flare out, but like I said, I was coming in contact with that plunge grind, and that's never something I love to see because that's only after the first sharpening. Probably my next sharpening, I'll probably take the plate off and see if it's feasible for me to cut my own little sharpening choil. If it is something I can do, that's something I probably will do. Being this is a Warney, you got a nice tip there for piercing task, and for me, I love doing the drag cuts through, you know, if you're gonna rip open through a box or anything, you need to do some fine precision work. You should be able to do that rather well because of this utility blade shape. It's a fairly robust tip, and that leads me to my next point. And most out the fronts, they're geared toward, you know, heavier use, I would say, because you got such a narrow blade on pretty much every out the front that I own, at least, and your grind height is very low. So you're not gonna be able to get these super thin and then have a thin edge bevel to them. So they're still going to perform. They're just not going to perform like some of your EDC knives. At least I haven't found that to be the case, but let's find out. The knife came with a pretty good edge out of box, and this is where this type of knife is going to excel if you're going to use it for EDC tasks. I mean, out the fronts aren't really geared for EDC, but of course a lot of people use them for EDC, and that's what I'm going to be using for, and that's what I'm testing. Just testing to see how it's slicing, and it's doing pretty good. It's not the thinnest behind the edge because out the fronts usually have pretty short grind heights. And I don't know, I'll probably check after this, see what the edge bevel is set at. But yeah, it's going to be excellent at those drag cuts where you need to use that tip to poke into the box, you know, drag it through. And you can have full power from heel to tip on this since it's a straight edge. And it's a great utility style cutter. We had a bunch of more boxes. Look, I'm just showing you how much I cut up. It sped up and I kind of cut out any dead spots in there. Now we're testing the ergos, see how it feels in hand, see how that edge is. And I'm able to make fine curls rather easily, and I'm able to get a good bit of force into the wood. I did have to adjust my hand once because whenever my palm was sitting on the button and I was pushing down hard, it was a little uncomfortable. And there's a clip screw also that is not a hot spot per se, but I'll talk about it later on. Now we're just doing some cutting with the 1/2-inch sisal rope. I lifted up on the block because of the straight edge, and I'll be honest, I've tested, I don't know, probably 10 out the fronts now, several warnies. I don't love doing the testing, especially doing like rope cutting and stuff with the out the front, just because they're not super slicers or anything, and that's understandable. But you know, I thought it did good. It was passing through it fairly well. It didn't have the most bite to the edge, but of course that's something I can fix right after the video. I plan on sharpening it up anyway, and I'll probably lay the edge back depending on where it's at as of right now. But of course I'm able to get a lot of force being that I pulled it up on that block because I'm getting more cutting edge onto the material. And that's about the only way now you'll see me doing this type of cutting. It's just not feasible to try to do it whenever your knuckles are hitting the cutting board before you even get all the way through the material. Certain things you can do whenever it doesn't require a whole bunch of force and it doesn't require a whole bunch of edge, meaning that the material is not wide. But if you can find something to lift it up on like this, it makes life a lot easier. And like I said, it's the only way I'm going to do it. Now, this is another place that's going to shine, just like I was talking earlier, the drag cuts, man. It's got a very nice point, not super thin, but thin enough to do the drag cuts easily. And that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. But I did even struggle here because I couldn't get all the way through that easy. I had to drag through the tip, so I lifted it up on the block once again. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense for me to do it without lifting it up. It's just too difficult, and I would find something in a real world scenario if I had to. But yeah, it goes through the denim no problem, and I'd say it did good. You know, I'm going to put my own edge on it, and I'm sure it's going to do even better, but definitely it's definitely okay with the way it performed. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed that cutting footage. I enjoyed making it for y'all, and for the most part, I think it did rather well. You know, it did everything I needed to do, and it was, for the most part, comfortable. Like I was saying, whenever I was really bearing down into the wood, I had my hand closer to the edge so I could, you know, control a little bit better. And of course that button is kind of uncomfortable, just like every out the front I've ever tested when you're pushing. But this one's got a wide enough handle, and I had enough grip to where I could choke back and I can completely miss it, and it was fine. Now, when I'm choked back, I do notice that this screw right here, the top portion on the side right here that sticks out, I could feel that. Now, it wasn't, you know, painful or anything, but it was definitely, you know, let me know it was there. But that was only when I was choked back because I was pushing hard on this one. But other than that, you know, everything's nice and comfortable. They got milling that kind of gives you some extra grip. So all in all, I was good with it. Now, the action on this thing is very nice. So you got the pyramid shaped firing button right here, and this grip on the step milling right here is nice and comfortable. You got a spot for tritium up here, right there, and right there. I guess that's what that's for. And it fires nicely. It's nice and smooth. They're calling it their bearing glide technology. I don't know. I guess there's bearings in there. I don't know. But it is rather smooth, and it's not too easy to where you can accidentally misfire it, but it's got that perfect tension and travel to it to where it comes out nice and fast. And I probably opened and closed this thing, I'd say 1,000 times now. And I have not had a single misfire. Love that. Let's see, the little track right there. You can see they got like the little mill groove for it to slide on. Yeah, it's nice and smooth. And a lot of out the fronts are not that comfortable for me to deploy just because of my hands. They're already beat up, and I have neuropathy, and certain textures hurt my hands. Well, at first I felt like this was going to be too grippy, but it's perfect because I'm not sliding on it. It grabs the finger and it stops it, and it lets me slide this rather easily, and I could do it literally all day. Now let's take a look at these aluminum scales. I think they said they've upgraded it to 70, 71, I think it is, or whatever, the better aluminum. You have flat scaled aluminum, then you have a bevel, like a deep bevel going here, and then a lighter one up here with some milled texture here, all the way down for some extra grip. Then you have some like jumps on the sides right there. And it does offer a little bit extra traction, especially you can see those little teeth right there. They're not like sharp or anything, but they did help me to hold this without gloves on rather easily. So it looks like you have a hard anodized coating over it. One thing I love about this one is it has a deep carry milled titanium pot clip that functions outstanding. Now, if you had thick pants, I don't know if this ramp's gonna be enough for you, but with my lightweight shorts and my jeans, I had absolutely no problem. It's got the perfect amount of tension to it. It's not overly tight. And you can see they even beveled all the sides right here to where you don't have any sharp spots. Now, where this bevel ends right here, there's a little point. My hand doesn't sit in that at all, so I don't know if that would be uncomfortable or not. Let me see. I can't even really feel it. But the pocket clip, A+ for me. I absolutely love it. And it buries into the pocket all the way. You don't really see much at all. Maybe the very top. Not to mention they inset the clip into the aluminum frame and countersunk those screws. But one thing that I don't really understand, and it's kind of a negative for me, the screws stick out quite far. And I don't know if it's just because they didn't have enough space underneath there or what, but I've had stuff get caught on there. So after this review, I'm probably just going to completely take that off and see, I mean, I would rather it on there so it feels that, but I don't like that. Or if I can find some screws that are short enough that would actually go flush. It looks like right where the screw flares out, it stops. So I don't know if it's because they don't have a countersink on this plate or they couldn't fit it, or the screws, they couldn't find any that are short enough. But I don't love that. But that said, I do love that you can swap it over for the lefties out there. All your body screws are Torx T8, and they did use very nice crisp Torx. I like that. They look nice and heavy duty. The only T6 you have are for the pocket clip screws and for the opposite side filler tab screws. This OTF has about the same amount of blade play as all my other out the fronts of my Microtech, my Guardian Tactical, my TacComs. So not the up and down's very minimal. See if you can even see that. It's a very minimal. Side to side is also minimal. So it's not crazy at all. I definitely think that's acceptable. Your weight in grams is 113.9 grams or 4.01 ounces. Now for some quick size comparisons, we have the Microtech Ultratech and the Guardian Tactical Recon 035. It is about identical to the Ultratech without the glass breaker, and it's a little bit bigger than the 035. Next up, we have the TacCom Chimera and the TacCom Vigor V2. It's a hair longer than the Chimera, and it's a good bit bigger than the Vigor V2. And lastly, we have the Ontario Rat 1 and Rat 2. All right, now for my nitpicks complaints. First off, I would love to see, especially with some of the warnies, I would love to see a hollow grind on these. That would be super nice because you could get it down thinner than this one is. This one's coming in at around 22 thousandths behind the edge. And I would love, more than that, is for the edge bevel to be lowered as well. Currently, the edge bevel is at 28 degrees per side. And that's very thick. I matched the bevel after the testing, but I think after this review, I'm going to lay it back some more, which leads me to my next thing. I would love to see the sharpening choil fixed so I don't hit that plunge grind. And like I said, I'll have to see if I can do that myself or not. Like I said, I think some fine cut jimping out here would be nice. If that's something you like, I don't really mind. I don't care. I can, like I said, I can grab the button if I need something to hold on to. And like I said, whenever I did choke back behind the button, I did feel this top portion of this screw in my hand. It wasn't terrible or anything. I didn't have to stop doing what I was doing. So, and lastly, I would love to see these screws countersunk so they sit flush. But like I said, I'm probably going to take them off, see if I can do something about it, or just leave it off in general. But what are my final thoughts? At $229, USA made, Magna Cut steel, and how nice it feels, I think it's an excellent deal. If you're looking to get into and out the front, or if you're a serviceman or woman and you need an out the front, I think this one's going to be reliable for you. I think you're going to enjoy carrying it just as much, maybe even more than some of the others like the Microtechs and the Guardian Tacticals and the Taccoms and whoever else makes out the fronts. I think it's a well-made knife. I think it looks really, really nice. If you don't like the warranty blade, they got clip points and they have tontos, and it might have one other blade shape. I don't recall. But yeah, definitely enjoyed it. And if none of the nitpicks that I talked about are deal breakers for you, then yes, I could definitely recommend this one highly. If you're interested in this one, I will link it down below. It will probably be an affiliate link. So if you want to help support what I do here on this channel, it helps pay for my testing materials. If not, no biggie. All right, guys and girls, I hope every one of y'all is having an absolute amazing Saturday. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.